Welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Postgame Pod here at Auburn Undercover. Nathan King joined here by Patrick Bingham as Auburn now has to regroup heading into the last game of the regular season. Tigers fall on the road tonight in College Station to Texas A&M, 83-72. We knew this was a game that was going to be extremely difficult for the Tigers from a matchup perspective, as heading into tonight, Buzz Williams was 5-2 against Bruce Pearl as Texas A&M's coach. That obviously improves as I get a severe thunderstorm warning on my phone. That now improves to 6-2 for him as the Aggies head coach. But yeah, Patrick, I mean, you and I were talking about before we got rolling. You know, you never want to make an excuse for any sort of loss. I heard that.
Did that come through? Okay, good.
I heard it on your end before it came through. Yeah, I'll just say at the beginning of this, we are very much under a thunderstorm warning as we're recording. So if we just cut out or anything like that, you'll just have to excuse us. Apologies. By the way, they said on postgame radio, the Auburn team is not traveling back until tomorrow morning. So there is severe weather in Texas. They're going to stay the night. But Patrick, we talked about, for the past couple months, you've been able to look at this game and say, that's a tough matchup. The Saturday to Tuesday trip from Kentucky is just going to be really, really difficult. They're able to split those games 1-1. So I think kind of a zoomed out perspective, that's pretty important for them. Obviously they clinched the title, but this was going to always be, because of this matchup, one of the toughest games for Auburn all season, on the road especially. But there were just a couple things that you come away concerned with from this one, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the opposite of how I felt going into like those away Alabama and Kentucky games. It's like, okay, those are hard places to win. Auburn never wins in Rep Arena or, I mean, really at Coleman Coliseum either. But I liked both of those matchups, and Bruce has said it all year, matchups. And in this one, it was the complete opposite. It was like, I really don't like. Buzz Williams has always given him fits, just the way they play. And obviously we saw that tonight. And, you know, I think something we've tried, and granted, it's only their third loss, but in the losses, I think we've tried to or even the games where they've not played as well, it's like, okay, what are the consistent themes of okay, what are the weak points in this team of if team does X, Auburn can lose. And I mean, this is really the only thing that, I mean, it's the physicality, and Pearl said that I think 100 times in the post-game quotes of just you could tell he was very fired up, and we'll use it as his motivate the team going into the Alabama game of if they physically dominate you, if you get pushed over, you're not going to win. And I mean, I think that's most evident in the rebounding stats. I mean, A&M 41 rebounds to Auburn's 25. What I think is more interesting is A&M had 24 offensive rebounds to Auburn's 16 defensive rebounds. You're just not going to win a basketball game when that happens. And then in addition to that, A&M, who shoots somewhere in the 20s at home during conference play from deep, shot 36%, made 9 threes. And so it's when that happens, it's not looking good for you.
I think that was the difference in this game, honestly. Because Texas A&M is a really good offensive rebounding team. Now, I will say, I don't want to be that person that gives an excuse just because of a matchup.
Yeah, no.
Because this is the most offensive rebounds Texas A&M has had in a basketball game this season. So this is not just, they do this to everybody. Well, they kind of do, but at the same time, they did it to you better than they have anybody else. I mean, there is a little bit of that in there of sort of, hey, you shouldn't have allowed them to be that good. They rebound, I believe it's 41% of their misses this season. That was number one in the country. They're the best offensive rebounding team by rate. They rebounded 65% of their missed shots. Okay. They missed 37 shots in this game, and they had 24 offensive rebounds. I mean, it felt like really as they were kind of grinding Auburn down in the second half, every possession was either an offensive rebound or a foul, and a lot of times both for Texas A&M. And so really, Patrick, that sort of underscores a couple things we know to be potentially susceptible for Auburn. Is their defensive rebounding rate is okay. It's not incredible. And their foul rate is now second worst in the SEC, or at least it was second worst in the SEC going into this game. They allow teams to shoot a lot of free throws, but you're right. The three-point shooting, Texas A&M entered this game as the worst three-point shooting team in the SEC. So you felt like if they were going to have a chance at the upset, hitting those shots was going to be really big. They started 3 of 4 from deep. And then I don't know what their percentage was coming out of halftime, but I know they hit 2 within the first 5 minutes of the second half, pushed the lead to 13. So yes, they shot better than they normally do. And then it kind of felt timely. It felt like timely shots for them to continue to keep up that momentum. On the offensive side for Auburn, another slow game for Johni Broome. To me, Kentucky kind of felt like, yes, he didn't score that much, but honestly, they didn't try that much with Johni Broome in the second half. They were shooting so well from deep. Other guys were just hitting it. And so they really didn't go too much at him. This game, I think, was a little uglier from him from an offensive perspective. A couple times where A&M threw a double team and Broome still put up the shot, which it's not like he's never done that. It just seemed kind of rushed. Auburn, as you mentioned, that is the Buzz Williams defense. It pressures you on the perimeter. It switches in the middle of a play. It's just always kind of giving Auburn fits for the way that they like to play. But Denver Jones was missed by Auburn in this game, and because of that, he didn't go. He had that ankle issue. Auburn's backup point guard was Chad Baker-Mazara, which we had kind of known was coming in this game, and Todd Pettiford was really, really good. I think Auburn's 2 point guards were probably the best players in this game. Pettiford was the best player for Auburn, 19 points. He had 6 of 10 threes. Baker-Mazara had 15 points. Considering how good Denver Jones was against Alabama the last time they played, they would very much like to get him back on Saturday, if not just for the defensive prowess that he brings.
Yeah, just a couple things kind of backing up what you said there. I mean, Broome, it's the first time all season in back-to-back games he's had under 10 points. That's only I think I just counted 4th time all season, which is kind of incredible in its own way, but still, you've kind of seen that. And it kind of felt, I mean, the Auburn's trio of guards, not Denver, he was out, Miles, Chad, and Tahad, combined for, I wrote it down somewhere, 46 of Auburn's 72 points. And it's like, which lesser than obviously the crazy Kentucky stat, but still kind of similar in vein. Like the guards carried you, but you could just tell, and Pearl said it post game, they really missed Denver's defense more than anything. And I mean, I almost thought it was more interesting. And one of the guys on the radio call, I don't remember who said it wasn't as much as like, obviously you missed Denver, but it was more that you lost a bench guy because Tahad then had to start. And so then Tahad doesn't get to come into the game. And so, it just kind of messes up your rotations and everything. There are some weird ones in there. But, I mean, overall, I guess the positive is like the guards are playing really well this time of year, which is something you really need. And I mean, I know Broome has had the, single-digit points the last 2 games, but if there's anyone to not worry that much about, I guess it's him. Dylan ended up having 8 points tonight. I still think my favorite stat line of the entire game was Miles Kelly, who had 12 points, made 1 shot, but made all 10 free throws. So, I mean, they got it done. And I think the only other thing you said about the free throws was just the disparity in Auburn letting other teams. A&M made 18 shots from the charity stripe. Auburn only attempted 15.
Yeah, I mean that's an SEC road game. That's kind of what you come to expect. I think it just kind of Auburn was never able, because of the way A&M, and this game was not out of hand really at any point until kind of the very, very end. But you've seen Auburn this season kind of, even when they've trailed or when they've only led by a little bit and want to break it back open, they've gotten a couple stops and then, get a couple shots on the other end and just kind of still the waters because of A&M. I mean, I would be curious to know, I'm not looking at it right now. I'd be curious to know how many empty possessions, completely empty, 0 points, A&M had in the second half. It could not have been many because of the foul shooting, because of how many times they went to the free throw line, because of the fact they had more than half of their offensive rebounds in the second half. They had 14 of their 24 in the second half. And so, look, Bruce Pearl said it after the game. And so I think it's okay to kind of acknowledge the fact that maybe Auburn wasn't as juiced for this game, because he said post-game, he said, look, it's human nature. He said if this game had conference championship implications, a.k.a. if Auburn was trying to clinch outright in this game, if Alabama had not lost on Saturday, he said, would we have put our bodies on the line? He said he hoped so. And so I think sort of acknowledging, I don't know if you caught it on the broadcast, Patrick, yesterday at his press conference, he didn't seem too, and granted he hadn't seen the team yet at practice, but like he wasn't really that worried, wasn't really talking that much about
that's kind of what it caught me by like he was so like, this game really matters. We want to go undefeated on the road, blah, blah, blah. Like he hit all the points and I was like, oh, okay. He still feels pretty locked in, which of course he's the coach, but yeah.
Yeah. And then pregame, they say on the broadcast that in their conversations leading up to it, Jimmy Dykes and Carl Ravitch with Bruce Pearl saying he's concerned about how his team's going to get up for this game. And so clearly that's a difference in 24 hours. And so Bruce was pretty transparent about that. Look, he's not allowed to say this, but we can say it. This was a meaningless game for the perspective of obviously the SEC championship. I mean, I'm not an expert at all on this, but I tend to think they've probably got number one overall. But I hear people who talk about, like Jason talked about with me today, like Duke historically, when they do well at the end of the season, they could get some love from the selection committee. Now, Auburn's still going to be in the South region. Like none of this really matters that much, but what does matter is playing well in March, and that's what you want to make sure you get back to doing on Saturday.
Yeah, and and Bruce kind of said it, I guess, in the post game. I struggle to believe they're not going to be juiced up to play Alabama at home to end the season in their last game in Neville. While it would be very awkward if they were to lose and still do the whole cut down the nets thing, like I struggle to believe they're not going to be fired up for that one. But yeah, I mean, I think things to look for. Obviously, I guess you expect Broome and would want him to continue to, get better and get back into double digits. I feel pretty confident he probably will. And then the Denver Jones thing is just continuing to monitor that, because that if that were to persist, like that is a big deal going down in to later games.
Yeah, I agree. Alabama's not the matchup. Yeah, and Bruce Pearl said it. He said, look, teams are going to look at this and say, this is how you beat Auburn.
Yes.
I don't know if many people can. Like, if you had looked at Auburn's schedule, what would you have said the two worst matchups in the SEC slate were?
Florida and A&M. Yeah.
Like, it's not even close. And, because you're not a Tennessee type of team that's going to go down there and be able to bang with them. And so Alabama, obviously is not that team. They're actually pretty good on the offensive glass, though. And so that'll be interesting for Saturday. Yeah, like Patrick said, the key now becomes how you respond. There's no reality in which, I've said it a couple times this week, like they could be two winless Sun Belt teams and Saturday would still be an insane environment. Like it doesn't matter where or when Auburn, Alabama is going to be juiced up. It'll be senior day for Auburn as well. That's another thing. Like I was talking to somebody and finding out, obviously today was senior day for A&M, but it was like Wade Taylor. And I had heard a rumor about the Wade Taylor jersey thing, or at least that they were going to do something to honor him, and that he had an opportunity to break their scoring record tonight. And the fact that A&M had lost 4 straight games, it was like this really – there were a lot of things working in A&M's favor. But again, you don't make excuses about that and say that it's an acceptable result or how Auburn played on the glass is acceptable at all. Auburn's just obviously got to go back to work. And Bruce Pearl, for only the third time this season, has to make some adjustments after a loss. And so Auburn falls in College Station on Tuesday night, 83-72. Number 1 team in the country, number 22, Texas A&M. So appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Postgame Pod. I don't know about you, Patrick, but the rain just started coming down really, really hard. So before we get cut off here by Mother Nature, if you guys are listening to this going into the morning, be safe if you got some weather. I know it's kind of going all over the South right now. And so we will catch you guys later this week. Obviously, plenty of preview coverage and stuff to get into about the Alabama game on Saturday. So until then, catch you guys over at auburnundercover.com. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Happy birthday, Nathan.